everyone who has joined today and our esteemed guest for the day, CS Nandini Gupta. I'm Khushi Bhatt, your host for the day. I welcome everyone on the last day of a wonderful virtual series of Tax Talk, a platform where we delve into the intricate world of taxation. I'm grateful to all the audience present today. Your exam year immediately after the exam week is truly appreciated. Today's focus is on the topic use of AI and tools in GST. Let's dive into this amazing session and make most of it. I would like to welcome our distinguished speaker on the subject, C. Nandini Gupta, C. Rajesh Agarwal, immediate past chairman of Pune WIRC, and Team Picasa. This session is jointly organized by Pune branch of Picasa along with other branches. I would like to request C. Rajesh Agarwal, immediate past chairman of Pune WIRC, to give his opening remarks and enlighten us all. Over to you,
Thank
sir.
you, Kushi. Thank you. Warm welcome to the today's faculty, Nandini Gupta,
Thank you,
and
sir.
all the participants. It is indeed a very good series started by Pune Vikasa, very useful for the students as well as members because students are backbone of our offices. They perform, if they perform well, we can execute and deliver well. So really thanks to Pune Vikasa for organizing such a beautiful series and having and selecting such a wonderful faculty, none other than Nandini Gupta madam for today's faculty. We all are aware of this GST is more system driven than a provisional driven. That's why we must know the tools and techniques to maintain and compliance 100% correctly. If we miss in in compliances, we have to face the litigation and unnecessary cost of that. It is better to perform well, compliance well, and to compliance well, we must know the tools and techniques to comply correctly and completely in short span of time without wasting much of time in compliances. We must know tools and techniques. Thanks a lot, madam, for accepting our invitation and
Thank you,
joining
sir.
this.
My pleasure.
It will really help a lot for many students. I just like to highlight this series is viewed across India, and even though student joined early morning are comparatively lesser, but during a day the views are much higher than a joining early morning. So I really appreciate who have joined early morning. I also recognize the presence of other branches committee members, including Vikasa chairman, Vikasa team, Ahmednagar, Bhavnagar, Nanded, Navsari, Sangli, Satara, Surat, Vadodara branches. I also thanks all the branches for joining this series. Uh, I wish everyone happy learning. Over to you, Kushi.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to introduce our esteemed speaker for the day, C.A. Nandini Gupta. She has qualified as a chartered accountant in 2018 and is a commerce graduate from Jain University. She is associated with HNA from 2014, right from articleship. Being a part of Pune branch, she has handled GST audits and consultancy for various industries such as logistics, real estate, hospitality, and automobile sectors. She has authored booklets on tips to draft effective opinions published by Hiregange Academy and assisted in books such as Compendium of Issues and Solutions in GST, Handbook on Central Sales Tax, etc. She is a passionate of indirect tax as a profession and believes in problem solving and value addition throughout. Presently, a partner designate of Pune location. With such an impressive profile and wealth of experience, I'm confident that we are in for an enlightening and informative session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kushi. Thank you, Rajesh sir, for such a warm words which is brought in. So let me share my screen for a minute and then we can start off.
Yeah, it's visible.
Thank you, sir. It's visible and I'm audible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So firstly, a very good morning to one and all today. And from my side, a huge round of applause for anyone who is actually attending the session live, and definitely a pat on the back who's going to go back and view the session today on the YouTube website, of course. Lastly, and the most important, thank you for this opportunity. And to Rajesh sir also, thank you for identifying that I am capable enough to take up this
No,
session.
no,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
When the topic chosen by our chairman related to the technology, I suggested there is no faculty other than Nandini madam to cover this topic in detail.
Thank you for the confidence. Right. So today's topic was definitely a usage of AI or the tool in GST, right? So there was a smartphone era, then there was an internet era. Definitely the internet era came up with a lot of confusion as to there's going to be a challenge in careers, there's going to be a challenge for the human usage, there's going to be challenge of the jobs which are there, right? But we've all seen that we've adapted, engraved, and also developed our own skills around the internet. By far, the most used level of technology for any one of us is a Google search engine, right? So with having said this, the future, which is going to be an AI driven tool in our day to day activity, I would say maybe partly future and maybe partly present also. How many of us have been recommended few things on the internet? Most of us, right? Our purchase patterns, our video viewing patterns, our activity patterns, the methodology in which we are going to order food, everything is already being monitored. Now, how is it going monitored in such a large scale? Because there is no human interference, but still the activities are definitely being simulated, identified, and used for the future. So when the future is going to be definitely usage of a similar AI for taxation, then adapting ourselves, understanding how it is going to be best used in the field of indirect taxes is going to be the need of the day. With this, today's session is not on the tools available for the purpose of GST. I'm sure multiple tools are there. There are various companies who are only driven by the tools of indirect taxes or direct taxes. But it is a beyond session for it. Because I feel unless and until we understand why there is a need, what are the challenges in the tools, what kind of tools to be adopted, there is going to be a limitation and we will become only the users and we will never see the other part of it of developing the same or creating such one or even challenging or seeking such a betterment in the tool is going to be limited or restricted if we are not aware of how big or how wide utilization the tool can be, right? Back in January, I started getting an opportunity of visiting and having a conversation with one of the developers. Let me be very, very transparent with you. The entire conversation, I went on asking multiple questions. Can this happen? Can that happen? Can there be so much effort? Can this efforts be reduced? I went on maybe for an hour or so, and every question answer from the developer was an ultimately yes, already there, or can be made, or we've already thought processed for. So there are brains who are working only to ensure there is a far spread use of the various tools in GST. There's already a thought process or a running activity which these developers have taken to reduce the human interference and heavy usage of an artificial intelligence by using similar simulated human behavior for the tax compliances also, right? So before we go into the tools and various importance of the tools and any limitations with the tools and how important is the same, let me quickly introduce you with certain provisions in GST and certain introduction to GST. This is going to be a background which is set for our today's session, right? So way back in 2014, definitely we all have seen that 122nd Amendment Bill took place, through which the GST implementation could have been possible quickly, or rather not quickly, I would say. It took 2 years for the President assent to be received and the 101st Constitution Amendment Act to be done. However, the next stage was very quick. Not even 1 year, less than 1 year, the GST was implemented, right? With with the President assent received only in September 16, but we had already seen in July 17, the GST was far spread implemented. Now, this quick reaction or a less than 1 year implementation came up with lot of challenges and restrictions in GST, right? The government wanted heavy transparency of the data, but the implementation, at the stage of implementation, that transparency couldn't be bought in. We've all seen where there was a need of MIS1, MIS2 for various mismatches, where the government modulating or government controlling and providing information to both the parties of MIS1, MIS2, various provisions for the same mismatch reports was to be sent. We've never seen the light of it, right? Why did this happen? Because of a very short span of time. However, did that restrict or limit the government? No. Year on year basis, they have ensured the transparency of the data to the GST department is increased. There is a department which only does data analytics for the purpose of indirect tax, augments the revenue, and the government themselves know for the next 2 to 3 years also how far the revenue collection can be. It can only increase but cannot decrease on the methodology which the data analytics would have been given. Now, presently, I would also have to tell the highest or the best way of AI or data analytics being used in India is not any of the software developers or any of the software company or a chartered accountant community, but by far, with the help of course, various professional organizations, including chartered accountant community, the GST department or the indirect tax department of India is the highest user of the various available information. Now, why did any of the business organization would like to move forward to GST with such transparency? Was because of the heart of GST. The heart of GST I would any day put in is to reduce the cascading effect of indirect taxes. Multiple complexities such as the state VAT, central service tax, central excise, entry taxes, everything got abandoned, everything got abolished, and given a day of 1st July 2017, only a single tax for the entire nation of GST was implemented. Now, with this GST being implemented and the heart of it being the cascading effect of taxes being reduced, this is by far the highest level because of which any tool is being used. That is GSTR 2B, 3B reconciliation, right? So any tool by far GST which is being used is for to ensure that there is no cascading effect of taxes, right? So having GST being so transparent to the government, compulsorily ensuring every transaction has been avoided with the cascading effect, let us see some of the statistics. So of course, the statistics are taken from the GST portal itself. So the accuracy is to that extent. So by far, 1.4 crore registered taxpayer far as June 23. The e-invoicing, which is given of by far the highest transparency and go live data to the department, has also seen an increased number of people. That is, of course, because of the turnover limit, the capping, which has been reduced by the department. So e-invoicing also 10.5 lakhs active users or to be used e-invoicing from only 33,000 back in December 20. On a year-on-year basis, the GST collection having been set a high record. We've always seen in the news that by far the highest tax collection for the month as compared to last year. So for the entire 23-24, it is 1.37 lakh crores is the GST collection. Definitely, it couldn't be easy to implement such a methodology of GST with such huge population and high voluminous transaction. By high voluminous transaction, I mean, look at this. E-way bill, which has gone as high as 37 lakhs e-way bill on a single day. That was by far the highest is what the statistics say. To ensure all the transparency of data is not being challenged but being adapted smoothly, there's definitely various outreach programs which the GSTN also performs for public officers and the use of AI for with GST portal itself. So we've always seen there is an GST interactive chatbot which has been put up. Now, this chatbot is definitely a predetermined chat, which is train the machine as to how the next question is going to be sought. Right? We've always seen whether there is an issue. Yes. Whether there is an issue in which month, then various month options, and you select a particular month. What kind of issue? So we've always seen there is a predetermined list of chat box which is being used. And chatbot, one of the GST interactive technology in the GST portal, is also one of it. Why is this important? Reduces human interference where a machine can answer simple queries. Right? With this, for understanding compliances, some of the basic monthly compliances and provisions, let us go through once. Definitely, the provision of Section 37 is for ensuring the monthly outward returns. Provision of Section 38 is to declare the inward supplies, including the reverse charge, which is your GSTR 3B, which is next is Section 39, which is for furnishing of various returns, frequency, due dates, general requirement of any of the returns, the matching mechanism compulsion. Okay. Next is 16(2)AA. So with effect from January 22, all the permutation combinations as to match, mismatch, percentage match, 10% match, 5% match was kept away with. And we all know there is a shift of asking the taxpayer to have 100% compulsory invoice level matching only upon which the credit is to be availed. Right. Next is definitely having the documentation for availment of the credit. We've always seen if there is an e-invoicing enabled vendor who does not provide us e-invoicing, then the said credit also shall be disallowed. So with various discussion like this, the heart of GST was always questioned or tested upon at every stage. The provisions of 16, 17, 38, 39, 37 as well as Rule 36 has made it very clear, along with, of course, Rule 42, 43 has made it very, very clear that the heart of GST is going to be tested, and there's always also the department would have definitely quoted you the provision of Section 155, which is for the burden of proof is always on the assessee. So with all these limitations, are all this restriction or questionability of whether at all there is a cascading effect or not is being closely monitored by the government. So let's see a few quick requirements. Definitely the availability of the goods. receipt of the services, availability of the invoice, availability of e-invoice, the credit not being blocked under the provision of section 17, matching mechanism of the GST portal, whether it is used for exempt taxable supply or the common credit. How have you taken the credit within the time limit? Whether the vendor payment has been paid within 180 days. So a single transaction has to be tested at so many levels. So how will it happen if there is not going to be any tool which is developed for the same? Whether a transaction is only tested once in GST, I would say no, it is continuously tested. Give you a few examples. Whether a supply which is received in April, you've fulfilled all the conditions, it is also there on the GST portal, it's also matching everything. Can the said detail, once it is put on the portal, remain the same or can it be changed? We all know it can be changed. There is a facility called as an amendment which is provided. And for almost 18 months for a transaction which is uploaded in April, that is up to maybe now presently 19 months because it is up to October of the next year. That is 30th November, which is due date. Up to that, it is open for any amendment. That means a vendor who's uploaded an X data can change and make the data Y, or can make the data which is firstly passed on to a B registered person to an XYZ registered person. That means any data which is there in the GST portal is not only tested once, but on a continuous basis. So that means it leads to a requirement where the tool or the technology should adopt a methodology to test the data on an year-to-date basis on every month or maybe every fortnightly or a frequency set for the same. So having said this, the test of the data being continuously done on a regular basis, human has its own restriction and it is going to be difficult if we are only adapting ourselves to an Excel-based reconciliation or a human-driven reconciliation on various things. We've all seen in market there are various tools which is available for the same. Minimum set of parameters which is required for any tool, I would say is 7. So at least a minimal scale of 7 has to be tested. Of course, there are higher level of tools which are available where 20 set of data, 21 set of parameters are also tested upon. Right. Next is the provision of section 44, which is the annual returns. Can we just say annual returns, which is GSTR 9, is only a compilation of the data? Of course not. If yes, then GST could have just simulated or compiled the data. There's also system generated GSTR 9. Why doesn't the assessee fill the system generated 9 and say, okay, I've complied with? No, there is a huge effort which is put in to ensure the annual returns are always having considered all the rectification corrections are made and the return is being processed. Now, this annual return is base for various other data analytics by the department. Difference from the monthly to the annually from the books of accounts to the annual filed returns, cumulated GSTR 2A versus GSTR 3B for an annual basis, various other parameters. So with this, not only there is a requirement of storing the data on a monthly basis, testing the data on a cumulative basis, but also ensuring the same data is available for compilation for one other activity called as an annual return. Now, this compilation should also be capable of having a versus reconciliation is what I would like to tell. Now, what is this versus reconciliation? That means the data should be open to having been reconciled with various other parameters, which we'll go through in the further slides. Next is final return. Some of us who would have dealt with cancellation, surrender of any GST number could have often filled up a data called as GSTR 10, which is a form for a final or the last mile return under before the giving up of a GST number. Now, this form peculiarly asks us whether we are compliant in all the compliances of GST. Do you think any tax is to be paid to the government? Then please specify the same. Now, if at all, imagine a business which is started in 2017. Now, after all these years, if a final returns are being filed, and to answer these questions of the final returns, if there is a limitation of the data, then how can the all the years be data be processed time and again before filing the final returns? There's going to be restriction, right? So availability of the data on a continuous basis and go live becomes very important. Next is for the notice for the defaulters. We'll not look at it now for future. I would call this a movement from GST government. What all actions the government took for ensuring there is higher transparency of the data are these. E-invoicing, a reduced turnover, ensuring more and more business, more and more registered taxpayer come under the shelter of the e-invoicing. Now, back in 2000, October 20, the limitation or the turnover capping was 500 crores. Now it is hardly 5 crores. August 23 onwards, only 5 crores. That are also 5 crores for any of the preceding financial year. That means maximum of the assessees have already been to the transparency of the department and the entire set of data. This is not only the data of the assessee who is uploading, but also helps the government to understand who are the customers, customers, etc. Right. Next is the e-way bill mechanism. For ensuring a higher visibility or transparency of the data for the goods sector, the e-way bill was introduced way back in 2018. Of course, various states had various implementation dates for the same. But with the integration of the e-invoicing and the e-way bill, at least to the extent of the goods, the government has fully aware of every movement of the goods. Remember, the same government also has the access to the toll of entire India. So they can easily simulate and understand of whether the goods moved from A destination to a B destination, whether at all the movement happened or not. So this kind of data analytics or this kind of awareness, the GST government already has. We've often seen a raid of fake invoicing. They would have reached to the customer, a 7-layer, 8-layer raid also could have happened. It could have started somewhere way back in a particular state and reached almost to a way back in another state. How did the government understand or simulate or get this data is because of having a higher data transparency and also using data analytics. Then definitely they gave certain responsibility to the assessee. While e-invoicing is e-way bill is what they could do, compulsory matching mechanism is what they wanted, but they had limitation or challenge of providing a mismatch report. And they put this responsibility very cleanly on the assessee. Now, this matching mechanism, we'll go ahead and further slides also. Next is the government definitely took a way step forward and automated the refund. It's very difficult to get a money out from the government, right? Is a thought process. However, the refund for with payment of taxes for goods itself is automated. And how this automation or the confidence the government got because they integrated the said data from the customs portal. Next and foremost important movement of the government for using the data analytics and the tools is system generated notices. Now, I don't know what to say. System generated notice is a boon or isn't it? Presently, there is such high proliferation of this system generated notice, which is actually could be leading to a higher level of dispute and litigation. But let us come back to the point, how the system generated notice is being raised or generated. The government has got, now we've just seen, data of GSTR1, GSTR2B, e-invoicing, e-way bill, purchase pattern. The government has also got access to various other portals. So with this, there can be a comparison of the data which is only available on the portal. So that means an audit itself can be conducted by the government without even access to a books of accounts of an assessee. So earlier, the audit was always based on the books of accounts, based on the hard copy documentation, etc. Now an entire audit can be conducted. I've also seen an audit report which is provided by the government, which is only based on the return scrutiny. If there is a challenge where the assessee is limiting the data or not providing the data, then the government has enough data and access to just simulate differentiation from various returns, 1 versus 3B, return vendor non-filer, vendor 3B non-filer, vendor GST registration cancellation. There are multiple things through which only that data can be modulated, and there can be multiple audit reports can be generated and multiple notices can be generated for the same. Now, let us see some of the auto-generated notices parameters. Why is this very important? Because the tool which we will be looking for, or any of the AI which we will be looking for, should be capable of addressing minimum these parameters. So firstly, let us understand what are these parameters and then see how any tool can be helpful or useful for us to address all these things. Right? First one, I'm not going into everything, but at least the important ones. Para 70, which is for 1 versus 3B. This is a standard or a classic one, I would say. Presently, we all know that if there is a difference between 1 versus 3B, and the minute the 3B is filed with any deviation of GSTR1, there is what? There is system generated DRC01B, which is sent to the assessee, which needs to be addressed, or else the complexities could be as high as the bank accounts getting freezed, the e-way bill account getting freezed, no other activities of the GST portal being allowed, etc. However, for the past or even for the present, where including DRC1B being addressed, if there is a deviation of 1 versus 3B, the system generated parameter of a tax which is passed on to the assessee but not being paid, tax which is passed on by the assessee to customer but not being paid in the 3B gets triggered. Now, limitations are, presently the tools used by the authorities are identifying those months in which there is a short payment of tax where 3B is lesser, 1 is higher, only those months are identified. But let's all be clear, if there is a shortage, there could be payment in the subsequent month, there could be payment to DRC03B, there could be payment in the annual returns, same with DRC03. There could be various other means of ensuring the short payment of tax which is paid, or the short payment of tax is actually not short paid, but some other month which was excess disclosed. So the tool or the AI should adapt itself to understand or simulate the data of 1 versus 3B also on a year-to-date basis. Sometime it could be need for understanding, identifying of a last year, this year also. Let's take a classic example. Can GSTR 3B file negative? Of course not, right? So GSTR 1, wherever it has a credit note higher than the invoice, the GSTR 3B has to get filed on a zero basis, and the credit note adjustment can be done in a subsequent month. So this is a classic example of 1 versus 3B. However, that month in which the credit note is reduced from the output tax, which is a credit note of the past month, there is going to be a system generated notice. But the tool or an artificial intelligence which is going to be adapted by the taxpayer or the assessee should ensure or capture the reasoning, including various set of classic examples like this. Next is 3B non-filer. Now, this 3B non-filer is very, very critical. I'm not going into the legal aspects as to whether at all the 3B non-filer is a aspect to be checked at all, whether how this checking can be done. I'm not going into legal aspects of it. However, how does a system capture this data? So this data also has to be kept on a year-to-date basis. Whether a 3B non-filer on the date of checking and 3B filer as of today can change. Of course, it can change, right? A non-filer can become a filer. So presently the system generated notice which has been generated by the department has limitations or restriction of this 3B non-filer. And the tool needs to adopt itself to check the same on a year-to-date basis. Of course, the GSTR 2B versus 2B or 2A versus GSTR 3B, I'm not going to get into this. The various reconciliation parameters, the all set of it where it is completely matching, partially matching, invoice date matching, all those things. I'm not going to get into this, but definitely the tool should be capable of having answer all these parameters at a summary level, at an invoice level, at a vendor level, at an year-to-date basis. So all these things has to be fulfilled. I would also like to touch upon the parameter 82, which is for excess ITC claim from ISD as available in GSTR 2A. Very important for this year because we all know ISD is soon going to get implemented and go live. ISD credits being distributed, the mechanism of the same, can there be a methodology where any credit which is availed by an assessee is also appropriately passed on through the ISD return, or if there is anything which is higher claim, is a simple parameter of this. Definitely there is system generated GSTR 3B which captures the data of the return which is uploaded by an ISD and also the credit which is availed. However, there is always a requirement to observe the particular pattern in the initial phase of implementation. Right? Next, I was mentioning as to entire audit of an assessee can be done with data which is available on the GST portal and limited or a restrictive access to the books of accounts. Why is it so? These are the set of data which is available to the department to analyze anytime. Some of it are clearly visible on the GST portal, right? The tax comparison statement, which is available on an every year basis on the GST portal, is a classic example where the data is being appropriately captured by the GST government. And any deviations has been clearly provided as to there's a shortage, there is an excess, etc. 1 versus 3B, data available to the department, they can do the reconciliation. RCM paid versus RCM credit availed. If there is anything which is not at all paid, but the credit is availed, but or if vice versa, if the RCM was paid, but not at all credit availed or availed at a period later than the time limit. GSTR1 versus invoicing, GSTR1 versus e-way bill, e-way invoicing versus e-way bill. Import ITC with IceGate portal. We all know the credit of import of goods is also being verified or regulated or monitored through the IceGate portal. Definitely, there's also maintenance of our cash ledger, our credit ledger, the newest type of ledger which came up as to the ECRR, which is electronic credit reversal reclaimment statement. all these balances of our books of accounts versus the GST portal. GSTR 3B versus 2B, a classic one. AS26 of the income tax versus the income which is declared in the GST. There can be deviations or a differentiation there, and also a system generated notice which is sent for the same. Next is a transfer pricing report versus RCM pay. Financial statement which is available on the GST on the website, the company's website versus the GST data. Now, having all this data, don't we all see that there can be a audit which can itself be run through this much set of data? Of course, yes. So this is what the department is also going. It is taking this set of data, simulating it, and also sending system generated notices. Now, where the heart being the cascading effect, avoiding cascading effect, everything in GST, definitely the backbone of such a widespread implementation of GST is technology. With technology, there's definitely going to be hardship for the genuine or honest taxpayers, but it is to curb or to reduce the unauthorized or the non-genuine taxpayers. Few classic examples of this reconciliation used for system generated notices. There is TP report versus RCM paid. The Honorable Supreme Court in Northern Operating Systems provided a decision of payment of a tax under reverse charge for secondment of employees deployed in India. Once this notice was raised, the revenue augmentations became so quick that those MNCs were identified whose TP report had a salary reimbursement component, and a particular notice, a spring of notices were sent to it. Actually, this led to a situation so much so that there had to be an instruction which has to be provided again by the CBSE stating that Northern Operating was a particular classic case. Please look at the documentation and the agreement for every single case. Now, how did the GST department do such an augmentation at such a short period of time? The minute the decision was favorable to the department, the next day the spring of notices started. When we've received notices to the same or similar issue, where the department had classically identified this year, this was your TP report, this much is the salary component. Now, please provide how this has been paid under the reverse charge mechanism. So this is on the GST department and how they are using the tools in GST. Okay, so presently, the screen what has been seen is the system of our compliances. I, as a chartered accountant, could be using type A mechanism. Rajesh sir on the other side could be using type H mechanism. Kushi on the other side could be using type N mechanism. Various other officers, or even including the same office, various other people could have different methodology of filing the returns, having the data being captured, etc. However, if we are talking about the future being AI and using of tools, then the most important one is to standardize all these things, and a standard type or a methodology is to be used. Only then an AI can be built in. Remember, any of AI or tool for GST or indirect tax compliances is based on what goes in, what comes out. So if there's a good set of data which goes in, good set of data gets processed and the output is provided. Okay. Next, let us understand the present challenges under GST. These challenges, by understanding these challenges, how the tools needs to be developed around these challenges, right? So like I told you, this session is not on any tool, but how to identify or adapt a tool for the present challenges being available. The highest difficulty for the present taxation for GST, at least I would tell two important aspects. One is high volume of data. Second one is storage and retrieval of the same. We've all seen presently the 1920 audits are going on, and how challenging or difficulty it is to identify that set of data which was uploaded, which was not uploaded, which was thought processed in the year of 2019-20, sitting ahead in 24-25. This is going to be in future also, where a same set of data is going to be questioned again and again and again. While the state has a mechanism of scrutiny and audit being conducted by the same team, we all know that the central team has audit and jurisdiction being a different team. Beyond which, in GST, there is investigation team and an anti-profiteering team also. Now, not anti-profiteering, I mean anti-evasion team. So having three sets of team, three set of thought process, beyond which there is system generated notices also. So the same set of data is time and again required to be processed and run in the fashion which is required by various authorities. For example, say a sale register, which is high voluminous. Of course, yes, high voluminous, because it has got a data which is analyzed to the extent of every invoice, every HSN, every particular type of product. So there can be a huge challenge of high voluminous data here. Complexity of the data. Now, in the sales itself, there is tax under reverse charge, there's a tax under forward charge, there is an advance for services, not an advance for the purpose of goods. There can be questionability or query on the authenticity of the data itself. So one is high voluminous data, next is complexity of the transactions. Next, if these two are accurate, only then the next stage of questioning the reconciliation or processing the data of reconciliation can be done with a particular tool. With all these things, there is also a new challenge which is always new. That is because frequent regulatory changes. Written disclosure mechanism which is being changed, a law which is amended, a new law which is put into a place, a new type or service which is being raised. For example, a reverse charge a transaction always under 5% now can also be a forward charge under 5%. Who knew this methodology could be there? Imagine a complexity for a transporter. He has got all types of forward charge, reverse charge, forward charge under 12, forward charge under 5%, every type of complexity. And also the disclosure of the same, filing the annexure 5, year-on-year basis identifying. From the point of view of a recipient of a transporter, every company has transportation bills, definitely yes. Now they need to understand what options their vendors have been chosen, whether it is proper or not proper. How will all this be done without having a proper or a best tool which is available? Next is lack of documentation and record keeping, right? Accounting system has data. It does have data. Now, that data needs to be processed well and documented in such a way that the GST compliances have been taken care of. Next is challenges or restriction in the e-invoicing. Now, in accounting, there can be invoices which are cancelled, not cancelled on e-invoice. In e-invoice, the time limit was over, so cancel through a credit note. In the books, there is no invoice, there is no credit note. However, on the e-invoicing portal, there is both. Customer could also get access of e-invoicing, as well as customer could get an access of the data which is processed through GSTR1 versus the physical bills. So all three could have deviations. So these are certain challenges for the revenue side of the GST compliances. Next is input tax credit reconciliation. Definitely, this is one of the highest complexity of data. Why? Because each one of us have a different set or system of data. There is no uniformity. Firstly, if there is a uniformity questionability from our own books of accounts to our own e-invoicing to our own e-way bill, then how do we reconcile our books of accounts, our methodology of booking the purchase entry with various vendors, with various set of vendors' data, and various different set of processes which are used for return filing process. Next is missed or delayed e-way bills. Now, whether at all a invoice is being processed with a e-way bill or not of any transaction of 1819 or 1920 having been questioned in 2425, how do we do it? If there is no tool which is developed for the same, imagine a person goes to the e-way bill portal and starts downloading the data. First limitation, there is a restriction of the number of days in which I think 5 days is the maximum report of e-way bill it provides. I think up to 12 o'clock, there is a monthly report which can be generated, post which is only 5 days. Imagine if the data of the e-way bill was itself protected or preserved or can be scraped presently from the GST portal, then it couldn't have been a better reconciliation and easier reconciliation is the thought process behind this challenge. Next and foremost important thing coming back to the heart of GST is vendor compliance management. We'll always seen, or we also just saw provisions of section 38, 16 to AA, rule 36 for then section 17, 16, where the questionability of the ITC was always there. So the tool or the methodology in which this vendor is managed is the most highest sought in the industry also. Last is the GST return filing issues. With the change or methodology of the disclosure, which is thought process changed by the department on a time and again basis, the return filing basis also has to be automated. Now, before we go into this slide of artificial intelligence, what does it do? Any AI presently is very clear that it is only simulating a human activity. That means if a human did a task which is provided in 1 to 10 steps, the AI does the same thing. Let's take few classic examples of the present AI which we are exposed to. Bots is a very classic example. Spiders or crawlers are very, very classic examples. These observes our purchasing patterns and reproduce the same on a regular basis. Say if I order a particular food on a particular time, then the next day at the same time, the same food is being advertised to me. If I'm going to search a particular thing, then every other advertisement related to it is going to be popped up to us. We've all been facing this, right? So how is this being done? So these are classic crawlers which are used in the website where a human behavior or a pattern is being captured and being advertised upon. Next is a chatbot. All of us would have seen to reduce the human interference for the customer care. A chat box is clearly been identified or clearly been provided. This chat box can be through what? Through a machine learning, right? So if a person is answering repeated questions and a repeated query of a customer is being there, then the machine also can do the same thing. So the machine is learning itself, learning to answer to various questions time and again because there is a human behavior or pattern to the same. Similarly, an AI for the purpose of taxation can be modulated, regulated, or it can be processed through what? Where a machine can learn the same. Where a machine is also simulating those steps which the person who is working on the system is processing on a regular basis. Remember, any set of data which is done in a similar fashion at frequent intervals of time, then it can just be replaced by tools or AI. Let me give you a few more examples here. How many of us send a data requirement mails to our clients on a monthly basis? All of us do it, right? How many of us send a reminder emails for at any point of time, which is data which is not received? All of us do. How many of us ensure that our emails are read and timely replied? All of us do. Imagine if the data seeking process to the various assessees can be automated. It can be automated. It doesn't require any AI, any tool or anything. Our outbox or the Outlook or the Gmail itself has a simple thing called a scheduler. This scheduler is going to be simply helpful to ensure that on every month on a particular time or date, this data is going to be sent to all of assessees seeking for information. So the tool can be small as what we spoke, and it can be so high as to do an audit by itself. How can it be so high is what we'll see in the further slides. So what the future is being looked for is to have a return filing process, a refund process, auditing itself through the data which is available is what is to be looked through any of the tool. Now, what is this tool going to give us back? Definitely, it is going to give us an increased efficiency. Would like to quote few examples. This efficiency is because of a tool we started using. Now, the tool did only a simple activity as to understand if there is a vendor who's uploaded the data on the portal and also uploaded a credit note on the portal. All it did is to give us an answer as to the data is being nullified. Now, imagine all the human efforts was put in to understand, simulate, curate this data as to this was there on the portal, but however being nullified. Why is this important? This is also being tested, right? If credit note on the portal is there, then whether the ITC itself is being reversed or not is always a classic question which the department provides. Now, if it is invoice is on the different month, if the credit note is on the different month, if it is invoiced at a particular X amount of 1,000, but credit note of a small chunks of 100 each, how does a human understand this and give an answer to us stating that the data is nullified? It's very difficult, time consuming, right? So once we started adopting this tool only for a nullification thought process, the efficiency immediately increased by 10 to 12%. Why? That much of human efforts increased and that much of accuracy also increased. So the tools which is available should give us definitely an increased efficiency. Any repetitive task, then it has to be automated. Okay. One more example I would like to give you. We all know in Excel, there is Power Query, and there is macros which is enabled, right? What does a macro do? It does capture a set of data on a step-by-step basis and rerun it every time a macros is being run. These are certain small steps we need to adopt to understand various tools which can be used for data processing. For example, for GSTR1, we all saw there were various type of reconciliation, sales versus e-invoice, e-invoice versus e-way bill, one versus e-way bill, multiple sheets. Now, having the data in such voluminous methodology, having various comparisons could be very high and prone to errors, right? Imagine if a simple macros is run where all the reconciliations are kept aside and only a single top level summary is provided, then it's going to be a higher appreciation for any of the top level management. Similarly, if a same macros, different macros is run, and if the data is provided at a very much scrutiny level, then it's going to be appreciated by a mid-level management. Similar data which is macros which is run, however, which is provided at an invoice level, then the executive level or a accountant level appreciation is going to be provided. So different same set of data run in different patterns and any repetitive task, then this tool has to be adopted for it. Definitely reduction in any of the error. We're all humans prone to human errors. If there is going to be any challenge or any issues or compliances on a day-to-day basis, then we're going to get affected and there's going to be human error on the data. However, with this tool, there is not going to be that. Also, there's going to be consistency of a data. If at all, a simple example, if a purchase register is being downloaded or a sales register is being downloaded from an accounting system, we all would have seen the columns are consistent, the methodology is consistent. This same consistency available for our GST compliance could be much better off for same set of data being processed time and again, right? Then real-time data processing. We all often wait for the 14th of a particular month for ensuring, checking, reconciling the data with GSTR2. Definitely there's an alternative for it, right? There is presently GSTR2A and presently there is e-invoicing also, which is there on the GST portal. These tools are developed so that the data is being processed on a real time. That means on the entry point itself, the matching methodology is being defined, the matching has been seen, and only upon having certain matching criteria, the accounting data is being processed. Then up-to-date compliance, definitely the compliance is going to be easy and year-to-date compliance can be performed. Next is predictive analysis. As an offering to any of the assessees, predictive analysis and having tools for predictive analysis is one new area which can be used. Trend analysis. Analyze the past data with the future purchase orders. Provide a liability which can be more or less available in the future months. Vendor patterns. How well the vendors have been being complied with, a trend analysis for the same. So this predictive analysis is a new offering which the tool for GST compliances provides for. Next, definitely the tool ultimately is going to be used for the automated return filing process. Presently also many are there, but accuracy, authenticity, and retrieving of the data is to be checked for. Next benefit of a particular tool would be fraud detection. Now, what I mean by fraud detection is not the transaction being fraudulent, but having cross-checked at various parameters, right? cross-referencing of the data, predictive alerts. Say, for example, if a data is being processed and we understand that the customer or the vendor is non-compliant or has challenges in indirect tax compliance, then there can be a predictive alert on the same at the time when the transaction is being processed itself. So one set of the data is we've all seen is to understand whether a data which is there historically is being tested upon after the transaction is being performed. However, with AI being introduced, the test on the data can be performed on day zero or even day negative, with predictions being there day zero on the time of data processing and go live on the day-to-day activities also. Some of the tools which are presently running out in the market, few of which does have artificial intelligence, some of which are tool-based analysis. Some of it could be Zen, ClearTax, Subit, SignetTax, things like this. These are examples where there's a thought process or the brain which has already been put into thought process for what? For having all the benefits what we just spoke about. It is to the best of us as to how we use the tool which is available or how we developed or adapt the tool which is also there. Now, at what all point of time a tool needs to be used for? First and foremost, definitely for various reconciliation. Do not restrict your reconciliation for 2A, 2B. Do not restrict your reconciliation for only the purchase side. But however, this tool of reconciliation should not only be used for the purchase side, but also on the sales side, beyond which, with the assistance of any tool, there should be an automation for data extraction, automation for data processing, identification of discrepancy, and once the discrepancy is being identified, put a tool for the same. Imagine a GSTR 1 being processed in 1 hour vis-a-vis 1 day. How much of human efforts can be saved and how much of more analytical thought process can be put into the same data rather than doing only data matching and data processing. Ensure the tool is going to assist for real-time reconciliation. What I meant by identifying discrepancy and putting a tool for the same. Say, for example, there are a few bills which are generally not matched. For example, the bank credits. The entry to the entire bank but for a particular month is being processed on a together basis. However, the credit is passed on a bank from a transaction level basis. So this error is there. So this is never going to get reconciled. Human interference has to be there. I mean, no. So the tools available in the market or which can be developed can just tell, exclude bank or exclude this particular GST number for reconciliation and include the same on a consolidated manner instead of a transaction level. So there was an identification of a discrepancy and helping the tool learn this discrepancy has to be addressed in what manner. So the human intelligence is used rather for teaching the machine its own development and identifying the error and putting the system for place instead of putting human efforts time and again for the same. Next is for GST scrutiny. An entire audit being done on the methodology of widespread data, like how a department is being able to do the data processing and providing a deviation. Similar deviation reports can be tested with the help of these tools. Next is risk-based targeting. What are the risks which are presently available? say vendor is non-compliant, the customer behavior is inaccurate, there is a deviation in any of the reports, the refund are going to be continuously questioned in the future. So various risks of the indirect taxes can itself be tested, and risk based targeting can be done on the set of data with this. Due diligence for the refund. We've often seen the officer performing the entire set of due diligence for a refund before even processing the refund. Annexure for the refunds are being matching, whether the ECL balance is available, whether all set of invoices are physically made available, etc. Imagine if there is a defined refund which is going to be processed for the assessee, then every set of purchase invoice which comes to the assessee automatically getting backed up at a particular flat file, and that particular folder is ready for submission to the department, rather than once identifying the set of refund, then reconciling, then downloading the invoices. So why cannot it be automated, or why cannot it be analyzed with the particular set of tool available is a thought process needs to be put into. Next is for detecting of any of the fraudulent transaction, monitoring the tax performance of the assessee, monitoring the revenue or the turnover of an assessee, segment reporting of the assessee, forecasting of the tax revenues can also be utilized simultaneously by using the tool, and ensuring the automation of the entire set of data what we spoke about. So the tool is going to give us a feedback as to whether the segment reporting of the assessee is proper, not proper. Say a customer has got a real estate business, a manufacturing business, and a textile business. So how much is the reporting of the top line which is done at each segment? How much is the tax which is paid at each segment? How much is the credit which is available for each segment? In which segment the vendors are being defaulted? In which segment the customer management is a healthy way, or a vendor management is a healthy way? So each segment by itself can be processed through the tools which are available. One biggest time-consuming activity presently which is happening is data extraction, data processing in the fashion which is required by each other. Often I see clients or customers who's asking me also, please give us a format, we will provide you the data. No. A data which is available from any of the accounting software, converting it to your standard format or a standard process is itself a tool which is required for. That means if a customer or if a client has a data which is extracted from SAP, if it is extracted from Tally, it is extracted from any other ERP system, converting that set of data to the data in which you require as a standardization, it itself has to be put into a tool in between for. Presently, because the tools are not available for this, there's a huge level of human interference on the set of data. With this human interference, there is lack of data, spillage of data, and also inaccuracy and lack of standardization. So one is data extraction. Second is once the data is extracted in any fashion which is being available, processing the same and ensuring that the same is being classically available in the required format is to be put into. Then I told you about reminder for the due dates, filing of the returns, compliance of the new law, etc. For administration purposes, definitely there has to be a very solid methodology of record keeping. Retrieval of the data is one of the highest requirement the tool should be capable of being providing. Then definitely Administration, I mean to say here, is past data being retrieved immediately, ensuring there is absolutely zero tax evasion and 100% tax compliance. One important slide, I will be taking more time here, where presently all the market players are focused on reconciliation, auto-populating data, data retrieval, and also for various other websites which are available for interlinking or the interplay for the data which is available on the internet. With this, what is the future going to be? The future of using an AI for litigation management is very, very important thought process for. Presently, the highest difficulty in litigation, let us talk in 3 steps. One is to identify whether a notice has been received, replying to it within the time limit, capturing historic data which is required for the said reply, ensuring standard good sufficient reply is being done. Also, multiple notices at the similar day, multiple replies on a similar day has to be managed. So these are the 5-6 difficulties in litigation management, right? So there are, for the first thing, let us address the first thing, which is to identify any notice which is there on the GST portal, capturing the data, putting it to a litigation management system, and ensuring the person who's working on the said notice gets an alert that in this particular week, this notice has to be replied for. How many of us maintain an Excel tracker for all the litigation which is happening? Many of us, right? How many of us have difficulty in retrieving the historic data? All of us, right? So presently there are bots. We spoke about certain spiders and crawlers. Similarly, there are bots which are put into system through which an assessee can scrap the data, where the assessee's litigation management can scrap the data. I will require a minute, please. Sorry. So we'll continue. So presently there are bots available in the market which scraps the data of the customer from the GST portal, puts it back to a litigation system. So imagine if any notices which is available on the GST portal automatically comes into a system and is available directly for working upon. Now, there were definitely the government questioning the application of the bots of the various market players. It had only restriction, but however, as a assessee, it can be used. Once the system is put, look at the advantage. All the notices are getting captured. It is captured without any human errors. And also the time limit, the notice, the forum from which it is received, the quantum amount, everything is been automatically captured without any human interference. Next step is to curate the historic data for replying to it. I've often seen, many of us have been seeing the chat GPT which is being used. Provide the notice along with how you want the reply to get drafted, it is going to get drafted in the same way, right? While that is how the chat GPT is working, the AI for litigation management is also adapted where, for example, if Nandini is providing 10 replies on a particular day, then all the replies, whatever has been provided, is been processed or thought process at a background running tool, which is there to understand how a human thought of a particular question, how a reply is being drafted. We've often seen in a Word document, if there is a spell error or if you're going to type anything, the future portion of it automatically comes. How does it come? The machine has learned it, right? Similarly, reply learning is also being taught to the machine, through which there is going to be automated system generated notices for the future. So how there is presently system generated notice, there can be a system generated reply for the same. Presently, this is the future because there is a lot of white papers, a lot of vendor customer management presently going on. And once it is all thought process through, there is going to be a clear system generated replies which can be generated. Now, to perform a reply, okay, there is a standard, there's a 1 versus 3B comparison, for example. There is a reply which is made ready by the system itself. However, how can there be a curating of a data? So there are systems which are presently developed where a login to the GST portal or login to a particular software with the notice also curates the historic data, does the processing, provides the assessee with the deviation, and any response or reply provided for it is also being captured, and the notice is going to get updated to that extent. I think this is very, very important, and use of the AI can only save us. I was just reading an article maybe 3-4 months back. The number of notices which are issued for 17, 18, 18, 19, I think in the month of December was around 30,000 30,000 notices in one particular month. Imagine the number of manpower which is required to ensure all these notices are being run through, processed through, replied appropriately, the data for the same is being curated. So such voluminous data requires the future, which has to be through only an AI, or else it is going to be less qualitative work with human interference being time and again there. Okay. So if anybody of us are processing or thinking about in-house development of a tool, or adapting to a particular tool, or suggesting our associates to have the tools, then very, very important aspect of us is to understand certain factors to be considered. The first factor which needs to be considered is to understand our own requirement or objective. Next is data quality and availability. Like I told you, what goes in is what comes out. So if there's good data, there is good data out. If there's garbage, there's garbage out. I really mean to say this because the quality of the data is has to be gradually improved. So coming to this data quality improvement, this comes to another serving or another opportunity where you can help your assessees or help the taxpayer to improve the quality. So there is various mismatch reports, there is various data which is available, and various deviations which are provided. So gradually, the internal data which is put itself can be improved upon, and that can be one of your other offering to your clients to ensure the data quality is being improved for the purpose of indirect tax compliances. Next is to understand the tool not only for the present requirement, but also for its future expansion, best possible solution, the tool's internal adaptability, integration of the same with our present system is also important. Say if the client has Tally and the tool doesn't go well with Tally, then why do we have to suggest it? So go with any other tool. So integration of any tool which is chosen to the present accounting system is one other very important role which is going to be there. This integration is how seamless, how well the data is being processed with the existing system, whether there is any human error or human involvement which is required, whether the present system are disturbed with using the tool, or whether the present system itself is being improved with the use of the tool. Next is training and skilling requirement. Like all of us are trying to get upskilled, any tool which is put into place also needs an upskilling of the knowledge or information on the particular tool. Now, this skilling can be as minimalistic as to just few tools which is Excel based, or can be as minimalistic human involvement of a background running tool while I was trying to tell you an AI which is just put into place where the human behavior is continuously learned from, or it can be one step ahead where you need to teach the team as to how the tool is being used for any of the next level tools which can be user interference based tools, the UI tools, what we call as, where there has to be a learning or teaching which has to be required for. Definitely, last but not the least, the cost versus return of the return on investments. Any business, any thought process where the error, the cost to the error is minuscule as, say, for example, less as 2 lakhs, there can be not be an investment of 50 lakhs, right? So how much is the level of error? That much could be the level of investment of the same, including the present adaptability and the future adaptability of the particular tool. Some of the key takeaways from today's session, I would say, ensure to understand the tool, ensure you deep dive into any of the tools which are available. Only through this, you can ask questions, you can ask or seek for higher development with the developers. Developers do not know a GST, but all of you being well equipped with the GST rules and regulations, you itself can ask and seek for higher regulation compliances with the help of course, the tools. So there has to be definitely an increased efficiency as an output of this. There has to be an improved or timely compliance. If the man hours which are received earlier was 1 day, definitely with the tool has to be 1 hour or 10 minutes or less than a minute. It cannot increase. Enhanced analytics, return, refund, regulation, auditing the books of accounts, the trail of accounts, any of the audit trails, etc. has to be there. Now, future analytics is definitely, I would tell analytics is not for present, but also for future, because the same set of data should be capable of time and again being tested, reconciled, processed for various other aspects. So we know one purchase register or one sales register for any particular month can be tested on a monthly basis on returns and an annual basis on annual returns, from a departmental prospect on a return scrutiny, from a departmental prospect of a GST audit, from any of the investigation. It can be just go on and go on. So this advanced analytics is one of very, very important aspects to be looked in for the tool. And look at the future to simplify aspects, to simplify human efforts for data collation, curation, etc., and usage of the human intelligence for more technical things, more law-driven aspects, etc. I think with this, hope we've all got a feed of how a tool or a AI can be used for GST compliances, GST litigation management, what to look for in a particular tool, etc. Thank you all for your kind attention to the entire session. With this, we could wind up today's session. And how is it, Kushi? Do we take in any questions or we wind up?
No, ma'am, we wind up.
All right. Rajesh sir, you have anything to add or we can wind up?
Hello.
Yes,
No,
sir.
it was an excellent session, guiding how the artificial intelligence is useful and we can implement in our offices. Just like to add one thing, there are some tools like we are using in our offices, Office 365. 365 have one tool which is free of cost and can be useful for all reconciliations. Uh, Copilot is a tool which we can it is a add-in. We can add in Office 365 Excel, and we can reconcile within a minute, which we usually take days time to reconcile one sheet. And the accuracy is more because it is an artificial intelligence tool. So I think we must use Copilot in our offices if we are using Office 365. If we are not using Office 365, then it is not free of cost.
Right, sir.
Again, many members, students are using old system of reconciliation. So we should adopt some advanced systems like X lookup we can utilize, or some softwares as suggested by Nandini madam we can utilize. This will easy our job, and also accuracy level will get increased. Really appreciate madam your efforts in drafting such a nice presentation. Thanks a lot for your valuable time, all key insights.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for
I
your
would
humble
like,
words.
Yeah.
I would like to thank everyone who has joined the session today
You
and seen
conclude, yeah.
sharing us. Hello?
Go ahead, Kushi.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to thank everyone who has joined the session today and C. Nandini Gupta for sharing her abundance of knowledge with us, and C. Rajesh Agrawal for blessing us with his presence. I would like to invite Mr. Omkar Pafar, editor head of Pune Vikasa, to present his vote of thanks.
Um, yes, thank you, Khushi. Uh, First, I would like to thank CA Nandini Gupta ma'am for making our Sunday this much knowledgeable with their huge knowledge and experience. Ma'am, this was a very great session on GST, AI, and interlinking between all the technical aspects of GST. So, this was an like very knowledgeable and enormous knowledge was there. Thank you so much for this much knowledge. Also, I would like to thank today's MOC Kushi for his for time and dedication to this session, because this is Sunday morning and we all know that we have to sleep. So thank you, Kushi. Also, I would like to express my gratitude to CA Rajesh Agrawal sir for being present here and adding their knowledge to this session. Also, I would like to thank all the branch staff and Team Vikasa members for their time and their dedication. So, thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Omkar. Thank you, Kushi. Students are highly motivating all time. And the session with students is also motivation for the coming week for me also. Thank you so much, one and all. Bye.
Thank you. It is available on YouTube, madam. You can also share with your students because it is really enlightening all the students and members.
Thank you, sir. Sure, definitely, I'll do it.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a
Yes.
lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, man. Thank you.